Well, good afternoon. We thank you for coming out, and just want to give you a little update. There's been a flurry of legal activity here over the last couple of days, and I want to make sure that our position was clear as to what's happened here in the last 2 days. What we have right now is a Court of Appeals majority. The decisions have been 2-1. 2 members of the court ruling against Karl and 1 ruling for him. And it's a split decision. And those 2 judges are frankly ignoring the court rules and the law. And I just want to make sure that it's clear to the media out there what's going on. What happened on Thursday was the Attorney General's office had filed an emergency appeal of the abatement order. And that's the order that they had asked Judge Stewart to issue a preliminary injunction, and he had refused the week before. That appeal went to the Court of Appeals, and the initial meetings or hearings, there were no actual hearings, but the initial decision was based on motions that were filed on an emergency basis by the Attorney General. We responded. The Court of Appeals issued its ruling at 10 o'clock or so, 10:30 on Thursday morning, where they summarily reversed, we call it peremptorily reversed, the trial court judge, remanded it back to the trial court judge, Judge Stewart, ordering him to sign the preliminary injunction. That same day, about 5 or 6 hours later, we filed our appeal in the Supreme Court. It's called an application for leave to appeal. We filed that. Under the court rules, there is an automatic stay of the Court of Appeals order, which means it can't be enforced. It's an automatic stay. When we filed that appeal, that stay went in place. Therefore, Judge Stewart did not sign the preliminary injunction order because he was following the court rules. The second thing that was the main issue, and if any of you read the decision of the Court of Appeals, you read the dissent by Judge Swartzel, and he made it crystal clear. The majority, the 2 judges who had ordered the case remanded to have the injunction issued, violated the court rules also, because you can't send it back like that summarily without having a full hearing, full briefing, and oral arguments in the Court of Appeals, unless it's a 3-0 decision. The court rule is clear. And just so you understand, court rules are the law that are binding on judges and lawyers and everybody in Michigan. They're issued by the Supreme Court. The court rule is unequivocal. It says you cannot remand and summarily reverse what a trial judge did unless it's a 3-0 decision. Judge Swartzel made it abundantly clear in the first paragraph of his dissent. This is not a 3-0 decision, and the majority is acting outside the law by doing this. That's why we appealed immediately to the Supreme Court on Thursday on the basis of that violation of the court rules by those 2 Court of Appeals judges. Then on Friday, 2 in the afternoon, yesterday, the Attorney General files another motion with the Court of Appeals. Now remember, the case is now in the Supreme Court. Okay, it's not in the Court of Appeals anymore. But they file a motion, emergency motion with the Court of Appeals, and ask the Court of Appeals to issue a second order doing the exact same thing that we had just appealed the day before, but this time adding the word immediate, telling Judge Stewart to immediately sign the preliminary injunction. Never mentioned the automatic stay. Never mentioned the fact that it has to be a 3-0 decision, which it clearly is not. And they issued this order on Friday, 2 hours after the Attorney General filed their motion. Never gave us an opportunity to respond, never gave us a chance to file an answer or a brief or anything. Another clear violation of Michigan law and the court rules. We have the absolute right to be heard and to file an answer before the Court of Appeals issued any further orders, and they did not give that to us. Karl was denied his due process. He was denied his right to be heard, and this court just issued an order telling the trial judge here in Corunna, you have to sign that order. Needless to say, we were astounded by that. By 4:35 yesterday afternoon, a little over a half hour later, we had filed emergency motions with the Supreme Court asking that the Supreme Court issue another stay, making it crystal clear to the Court of Appeals they can't do what they're doing. That's pending right now in the Supreme Court. So that's what I wanted. It's one of the main reasons we wanted to have this today, was to make sure everybody understands what's going on here. Our client is being put through all of this, having these orders entered with no due process, no opportunity to be heard, right, and in violation of our court rules. Right. So I want to make that crystal clear. So what we're doing today is we're holding this conference. Carl's going to speak, and then we can answer any questions that you have. But we are calling on the Supreme Court to stop this. There is a valid appeal pending in the Supreme Court right now. There is a motion before the Supreme Court for a stay and to stop these actions by the Court of Appeals. That's what we're calling on the Supreme Court to do, and that's what we're hoping on Monday they will do. I guess we'll see. The Supreme Court obviously could rule against Karl. We don't think that's what's going to happen, but that's up to the Supreme Court. That's why they're the Supreme Court. And we're just hoping that they will issue an order on Monday and let this go through the normal process so that we can be fully heard before these weighty decisions get made and before they can try to destroy Karl's business of almost 60 years. So that's the legal situation where we're at right now. I just want to make that clear, and I hope I did as to where we are. Then we're going to have Karl come up, say a few words of what he plans on doing at this point, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Karl! Woo! Karl!
Thank you. I want to thank you all for coming. You know, my supporters, there's been some questions, you know, about my supporters, and questions about things like the GoFundMes, okay. There's been the GoFundMes, you know, I want to say something about that. I had attorneys coming out of the woodwork that were ready to do this pro bono. I had no intentions really of not knowing whether an attorney was, whether he was an ambulance chaser, whether he was a good attorney or not. I was introduced to Dave Coleman, and I made it clear at that time that I wasn't, the pro bono is not my style. I believe that people should get paid for what they do. And I accepted that, and he accepted that that we would be fair with one another, and he assured me that he would be fair. And when these GoFundMes came in, we're losing. We're losing Channel 6. We're losing you. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Yeah, there we are. When the GoFundMes came in, I made it clear to my supporters that as much as possible, and wherever, and whether it was with Dave or with other projects, that their money would go towards things that we all support together. That as you are, I become somewhat of an icon. I become somewhat of a voice for you and for your concerns about freedom and about living in a country that is slowly going in another direction. So I want to make that very clear, that I'm here to, my supporters are here, and I'm here to make sure that whatever funds and money is put to in a direction that you will be happy with and I'll be happy with. But it's not for it's not for me to go and buy a new suit, or for me to go out and you know, have a big dinner. It's for some of the losses, possibly, you know, that I've had, maybe here and there, a little something or other, but not for my aggrandizement. All right, it's been an amazing journey. You know, I mean, I've had, I can't believe this. You know, I was perfectly happy to stand in that window and be just as famous as I was a month ago, and wave to all my neighbors that were going by and all my my clients that were going by, and we were all enjoying one another in this little community. I haven't stopped cutting hair. I've continued.
Yeah.
I've had a day off here and a day off there, but it's only because of things like this, where we've had to have court things, and we've had to have some getting together with legal counsel, and that's the only reason that I've stopped. I have not stopped because the governor told me I needed to stop.
Right.
You know, I could not survive financially at that time. You know, at that time that my bills were due, and I needed to go back to work. I worked 60 years in this business, and I wasn't about to see my 60-year efforts going up for something that didn't seem to have an awful lot of data, hard data behind it. I was taking notions, you know, people were, they explained to me that they were an expert this and they were an expert that. And one of the things, you know, that I've come to discover is X's oftentimes in spurts. You know, an X is a has-been and a spurt's a drip under pressure oftentimes. So it's not really, you know, an expert. It's hard to determine what you're an expert in, you know, where your data came from. You know, so from that standpoint, it's still very difficult. I was just talking about it a minute ago. There's no filters anymore. Where do we get truth coming in now? You know, the internet, through social media, there are all kinds of notions going on out there. So it's really, we have to honestly, for myself, I have to go inside and have this relationship that I have with my Creator and ask for wisdom. I've used that serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change those things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
There you go.
Now, from that standpoint, I trust that.
Right.
You know, we're all here collectively. I had a little deal going with Barney the other day, Stuart Barney, on his financial. Twice now he's had me on that program, and twice now I've had to remind him that we're Americans and we're all together in this thing.
Right.
And if we don't just take one part of the Constitution and we're going to enjoy that, and we're going to, you know, that'll be our baby. It's the whole thing together.
Right.
All right. The governor now, she has been picking what we could refer to as maybe winners and losers. You know, it's all arbitrary. There's no science behind this, no data behind this. It's notions. Some businesses have never really been closed. So far, you know, there's been people that have stayed open. Others were allowed to stay open. Others were executive orders said that they had to close. I remember a game called Simon Says. You remember that game? Simon Says. Well, now we have Gretchen Says. The governor said we cannot use kayaks, but she says it was a public health risk to use a motor. The governor said we could buy light bulbs, but she said it was a public health risk to buy paint. The governor said it was okay for people to have abortions, but she says it was a public health risk to allow knee operations. The governor said people could buy stuff at Walmart, but she says it's a public health risk to shop at a small store selling the same items.
Ridiculous.
The governor said it is safe to eat. It's safe to eat in a restaurant in Traverse City, but she says it's a public health risk to eat in a restaurant in Owosso.
Come on.
Yeah.
Even as we stand here today, a dentist can work, and they're no further apart than me. A dentist can work with a chair. They have a chair. They have, you know, a mask. But a barber or a beautician cannot. A chiropractor can do body adjustments, no further apart than me. But a barber or a beautician cannot. This is uncanny. When I'm cutting a person's hair on the top of their head, and my combs are not tongue depressors, I don't see where there's a health risk with anything that I'm doing, providing I'm following the guided rules for this. The governor says she still does not have a plan to open up barbershops, gyms, or a restaurant. She acts like a stepmother, a cruel stepmother. And she's not my stepmother, and she's not my mother.
Right.
She does not know what is best for me. As I said, I can't filter what she says through any scientific data that's reliable. I have to depend upon myself, my own common sense, my own adulthood, my own American citizenship, to be able to make adult American decisions in a free way. The legislature declared that she was out of order on April 30th.
That's right.
I decided I had a constitutional right to go back to work.
Yeah.
I could run my own business as long as I was doing it safely. We've had rules in place since day one about washing our hands. I mean, this was the big thing in the beginning. Wash your hands. Make sure you wash your. I've always done that. Pretty hard and difficult to have the spatial distances be safe between myself and my client. I'm behind them. I'm working on the top of their head. But we did that. We started wearing masks, so that it became even safer. So these are the kind of things that I have a right to run my own business, and I did it safely. I didn't ask for all this attention. Like I said, I was just as happy being as famous as I was a month ago, and my neighbors here in this community. Now I've become an icon in a sense across America for people to stand up, to open up, and to show up.
Yeah.
And you, as the field of dreams, you open up your businesses, America, and people will come.
Yeah.
It's terrible what's happened.
We love you, Carl.
Yesterday was a sad day, in America. Yesterday, the Court of Appeals, in that 2-1 illegal decision, illegally forced Judge Stewart to issue a court order to close my shop. Judge Stewart has already ruled twice in my favor. The state didn't understand that. They're still going to bully him around. They're going to bully him as much as they can bully anybody, and bully all of us. And they forced him, after he had denied 2 times their request to shut down my barbershop. On Thursday, the Court of Appeals illegally overruled Judge Stewart in a split decision as part of the legal process. I filed an appeal to the Michigan Supreme Court on Thursday, and according to the rule of law, I'm told there is an automatic stay on further action until that appeal is heard. Yesterday, the Court of Appeals on an illegal decision issued in an emergency ruling to force Judge Stewart to shut down my barbershop.
Where's the justice?
The Court of Appeals acted more like a bully playground character, acting above following the rules and not giving an individual citizen like myself or you your citizen rights to due legal process. I was not given any due process opportunity to defend myself before their emergency action yesterday. The Court of Appeals also did not follow the rule of the law established by their own courts. Now, I have also appealed the illegal action be taken to the Court of Appeals to the Supreme Court, by this Court of Appeals to the Supreme Court. I've never seen anything like this. I was born in 1942. I've gone through 14 different administrations. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the president when I was born. I've never seen anything like this. This is a police state action that we're going into. Younger people, I'm going to make an appeal to you. I'm 77. I got one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel. I've already beaten the odds of living as long as I have. So, you younger people are going to have to pick up the baton. If you want to have your freedoms, you want to have your rights, your constitutional rights given by God to all of us, and you want those protected, you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to stand up. You're going to have to open up your hearts and your minds and show up for these kind of events. The legislature has said the state of emergency ended at April 30th. Then the governor refused to respect or work with the legislator elected by we the people. And they told her she was done, and she refused to. And she's gone through all of these processes now that are proven to be illegal, and they're going to, hopefully, the Supreme Court will see them and they'll be overturned. Now, the court, with 2 judges appointed by Governor Granholm, is not following the law, but using a heavy-handed approach to force a shutdown of my business. You know, the governor sent, you know, I like policemen. I have a lot of them as clients. And one of the things that I found out now, when the state troopers came into my shop here to give me that order to desist, to cease and desist, I found I had a state policeman in there at the time getting a haircut. He was waiting for a haircut. And he was watching all this. And he told me afterwards, he says, they did not want to do that. He says, they did not want to do that. But they're ordered by the governor. They're working people. Right. You know, they have jobs. I mean, they have children in college. They have things to pay, their mortgages. They're also fearful. When we have a bully government, a bullied governor like we have now, that can even bully her own troops into doing these kind of things against their will. They know what the Constitution is because they took an oath to preserve it. So I know they don't want to be part of this. Governor Whitmer is not acting like a person who governs, but is behaving like a ruler. Now, I'll tell you something. I will be governed, but I will not be ruled. And when these orders are coming down, when these orders are coming forward, without any legislation behind them, these are executive orders that says, I am making the decisions here. I will tell you what the rules are. These are not rules, these are laws, she proclaimed. And I'm positive that our Supreme Court, if they follow the Constitution, will find that this is inappropriate, it's unlawful, illegal, immoral, wrong, and is not upholding to the American Constitution or our what we are as Americans, what we're about.
Right. Yeah.
During the 1960s, this was kind of an interesting thing because, you know, I also went through the 1960s. There was a lot of protests and things going on at that time. There was a government oppression. There was a cease of the civil rights, human rights. There was censorship put on free speech. The Democrats at that time were the people that were behind things like free speech, limiting government power, for civil rights. They've completely done a flip around now, where they become the party of censorship, the party of oppressing free speech, oppressing the working class people. They're no longer the party of the union workers. They're no longer the party of free speech or civil rights or human rights. They stood with the people back then. They're no longer doing it now.
Right.
Barbershops, restaurants, and other businesses have been closed down almost 3 months based on her last orders. And I'm going to tell you something about this. If you try to protect somebody physically, we're going to protect you. We're going to protect all of you for 3 months. You stay in your homes physically so you won't get the coronavirus. Now, shut down the churches, shut down the AA meetings, shut down the NA meetings, shut down the counselors, shut down any contact with the rest of your family that may live in another part, whether they're grandpas or grandmas. Shut us off from all of those people. You will end up with a vacated, vacuum person, empty.
Right. Yeah.
And this is what's happened. I had just a half an hour ago before I came into this meeting, I had a lady on the telephone. Broke my heart. She's a disabled veteran. She's been locked up now for the last 3 months. Her hair is just causing her all kinds of grief and problems. She lives down in the Detroit area, and she's sobbing and crying, and she's drove all the way up. She was at the end of her ability to be able to handle life alone in that situation. My heart went out to her. These are things that did not have to happen. It's unconscionable, some of the stuff that we've had that has all this 3 months of confinement. How do you expect people to stay locked up for 3 months and not have an end in sight? The last I knew, We were all adults and could make our own decisions, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. We have recorded unemployment of 22% now. It's record unemployment in this state. That's only, the last time it was even close to this was during the Great Depression, where it was 25%. But now it's very close to that, almost as high as the Great Depression. 1.8 million people without work in Michigan. You know, and when I see this happening as sort of a, within the party, within the Democrat Party, and within this administration, there is a will to somehow or other destroy the economy for the sake of maybe getting a leg up on this administration in Washington later on this fall during an election period. But to destroy an economy that did not have to be destroyed this way is unconscionable.
Right.
But the question becomes, you know, when is enough enough? You know, it's time to move Michigan forward. Again, I can't reiterate this enough. It's time that we stand up, we open up, we show up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know, I get this right now. I've become kind of a worm in our governor's brain. You know, I'm certain that you know, I'm sure that she would probably just as wishes that maybe I wasn't here. I've cut hair longer than that woman's been alive. I have a 60-year-old business here, and she's pulling my license. She's going to padlock my doors. She's placing me under a threat of jail. You know, I'm 77 years old, like I said before. You know, I beat the odds. I got one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel. You know, I could care less about all this nonsense. I'm going to continue opening my shop. I'm going to continue working as a free American.
Yeah.
This is not the Michigan I know. And it's certainly not the America that I grew up under. It's not freedom. This isn't freedom. This kind of thing. The price we're paying. When I you know, I'm going to read something here because this, you know, this is really kind of important to me. These are these letters that I get. You know, and this is one of them. Dear Mr. Manke, you are a man of principle and inspiration to us all. About a year after your birth, at which I was born in 1942, and in 1943, 209,000 brave souls stormed the beaches near Normandy to ensure the freedoms we up till recently took for granted. Nearly 54,000 paid the ultimate price. That was in a couple of days. 54,000 Americans lost their lives for freedom in 2 or 3 days. That equals the same amount that were killed in the Vietnam War over a 10-year period. The 76 years later, you are standing up as a tyranny not unlike early 1930s Germany. Know that you are not alone. Others will follow and freedom will prevail. I hold you out to my sons as how a man should be. You may be uncomfortable with the word hero, but know that in 50 years' time, when they are nearly your age now, and another tyrannical power takes form, they'll remember a barber from Michigan and hopefully follow his example.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. You know, I'm going to say it's time, you know, for all of us to wake up and to stand up. It really is.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, I think even if we are in one party or the other, whether the Republican or Democrat, whether you're a Catholic or a Methodist or a Lutheran or a Presbyterian, first, you know, we're all Americans first. You know, regardless of what our race is, our color is, our creed are, we're all Americans first.
Yeah.
That was one of the points that I wanted to make to Stuart Varney the other day when he was going on to me about the guns, guys standing out here in the military with guns. You know, we can't pick and choose which one of the amendments we're going to support. We have to support them all as Americans and stand up with each other as Americans and hold our freedoms as a gift from God to each of us.
Yeah.
I look forward now. I'm not going to back down. I want to tell you that. Number one, I'm not going to back down.
Yeah.
I will not. I look forward. I look forward to the opportunity for Michigan Supreme Court to hear my case. I really am.
That's
I'm
right.
looking forward to that because I know in my heart, I know the fairness, you know, and the Constitution that we have had people live and die for, that it will be supreme in that particular instance. This is not just about me, and I want to make that very clear. This is not just about me, it's about all of us. This is about all the business owners who are still held hostage by our government, by all the people still locked up in their homes, fearful to come out because of some concept that they're going to get this virus coming through the air some way. It's time to let the people go and set them free from the governor's prison. I remember, you know, my parochial school days, you know, when we had Bible history. You know, when Moses, you know, he was asked to set the people free.
Right.
You know, Martin Luther King, set the people free.
Right.
You know, and again, today, we need to stand up and let the people be free. in this country. I always pray that prayer, that serenity prayer. I prayed that prayer for years and years and years. You know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And I'm not saying, you know, Governor Granholm or Governor Whitmer or Governor any governor or president so-and-so. I'm not asking them. I'm asking God to give me that serenity to accept the things I can't change. But also God asking him to give me the courage to stand up and the wisdom to know the difference. That I'm asking for, and that I've received. The Michigan legislature has had the court to bring this nonsense to the Supreme Court. And now I have the courage to do the same.
Right.
We are now all praying that the Supreme Court can bring some wisdom to Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. You know, I've had a number of people ask me.
Took the mic up. Yeah. Point it up in here.
All right. I've had a number of people ask me, well, you're an attorney. Are you telling Carl to violate a court order? Well, of course not. I'm an officer of the court too. These same laws that I'm criticizing the Court of Appeals for doing, I'm bound to follow. All I can tell Carl is, there's a court order, and all I can say as an attorney is, should comply. But that's his decision. And I told Carl this too. If you choose to keep going forward, which he's doing, we'll defend you every step of the way. I'd like to open this up for any questions anybody has, and we're happy to do that. Yeah.
What's the process again that you're going through with the Supreme Court?
Sure. What's happened now is we filed our leave to appeal on Thursday, which put in place the automatic stay that was ignored yesterday by the Court of Appeals. And then we filed a second motion for immediate consideration and a second motion for stay to make it crystal clear. And that's what's pending in front of the Supreme Court right now. And we're hoping they'll take it up on Monday or very quickly, one way or the other.
If they don't, then what?
Well, we wait until they rule. In the meantime, I think Carl's made it clear what he's going to be doing. And I guess we'll see how the state responds to that. But in the meantime, this is at the Supreme Court. And we're just, like I said before, we're calling on the Supreme Court to take it up. And look, make a ruling one way or the other. And make a ruling.
If law enforcement or whoever shows up before the Supreme Court rules,
right,
what do you do?
Well, if the only thing they can do at this point is they could bring a show cause order against Carl for contempt of court if he continues to cut hair, as he's indicating he will. And then we would go in front of Judge Stewart, and then the judge would decide whether or not he's in contempt of court. And if he determines that he is, then the judge decides what punishment there would be. And there's a whole range of things that's up to the judge, everything from basically saying don't do it again up to jail. So it's up to the judge at that point.
I don't know much about court procedure, but can you like sue the state of Michigan, or is that like too far away?
Yeah, no. So the question is, can we sue the state of Michigan? Now they have immunity, and there's a very, very high bar to sue state officials over this sort of thing. So the answer to that would be no at this point, which is part of the problem. There's no recourse.
Have you reached out to like President Trump or trying to go on above Governor Winter?
No, we haven't bothered the president with this sort of thing. This is a Michigan situation, Michigan law. I know it's gotten national attention and all of that, but we're not based. Everything that's happening here is based on Michigan law, and so that's obviously we would appreciate help from whatever source, but we have not directly reached out to the president. No.
A question regarding yesterday, Attorney General William Barr has stated that he has joined with 7 other businesses here in Michigan in a lawsuit in court. Does any of that will any of that, if they win in that, will that come down and help barbers or?
Well, it depends, and I'm not sure which case you're referring to, because there are some cases that are in federal court and there's some cases that are in Michigan State Court. Our case is in Michigan State Court, and the legislature's case is in Michigan courts. So a federal decision may or may not impact what we're doing here. It depends on what they ruled on and that sort of thing. So it's a hard question to answer.
Does it seem like they're just kind of dragging their feet and trying to get to, like, I guess now June 12th, when this would all, apparently the stay safer at home order is going to end and then everyone will be back to business?
I don't know what their plans are or motives or anything else. Again, I want to make it clear, nobody is challenging anybody's motives here. There's a virus out here that's very serious. There's a virus here where people are dying. We're seeing, though, that most of those deaths, in fact, the vast majority of those deaths are in nursing homes and the elderly over age 80. There are steps that could be taken to address those things. If you're age 50 or below, the CDC just came out with this week. Your chances of dying from the COVID virus is like something like 0.02%. I mean, maybe even lower than that. I mean, that's down in the flu range. Where have we ever shut down our economy or our country, lost constitutional rights over the flu? I mean, it doesn't minimize. I don't want anybody leaving here thinking we're minimizing the seriousness of what everybody's facing. But remember, when this all started back in March, what were we told over and over and over again? 2 reasons. We need to flatten the curve so that the virus doesn't explode, real quickly. We got to flatten that curve, right? And secondly, we don't want our hospitals to be overrun. We don't want our health system to be unable to handle the expected flood of cases. Well, guess what? That's happened. Do you know the peak in Michigan of COVID virus cases was April 3rd? That's almost 2 months ago, folks. April 3rd. I mean, we've had days in the last week with 5 people have passed away in the state, 12 people, things like that. Again, it's not to minimize. One loss is tragic. One loss is horrific for that family. But again, does that mean we lose our constitutional rights because there's a virus? I don't think so. And we need to have people treated as adults. Businesses can open up. If Walmart can open, Carl can open.
Right.
If the marijuana shop can open, Carl can open. If your dentist can start working on your mouth and doing all this, which they can now, or your chiropractor, Carl can't cut hair. Do you see how insane that is? I'm sorry, folks, use common sense.
Right.
Where is the science and data for that distinction?
Right.
That question should be asked. Where is the science and data that says Carl can't open, but these other individuals and favored businesses can?
Right.
There is no rationale for that.
Right.
We need to start opening it up, using common sense safety procedures, which Carl is doing, and let's get people back to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
2 hours ago, the Detroit Free Press said U.S. Justice Department intervened in lawsuit opposing Whitmer's coronavirus orders. 7 businesses now have gotten together, and Bill Barr and the Justice Department are out to help against Whitmer.
Well, that's awesome.
So, are you?
We'll have to get in touch with them.
Yeah.
I'll have to find out more about what's going on there.
All right.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
So when Mr. Manke and I spoke on May 4th, it was evident that you were taking precautions, wearing a mask on May 4th and other items. Now that you've become, as you describe, an icon with people coming from all over the state and all over the nation, do you feel that potential exposure to yourself or customers has increased to COVID-19?
Well, matter of fact, You know, no, I haven't. I haven't seen any data that would even come close to supporting that. I've had you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people coming through here. Some for haircuts, some just to give me a pat on the back, some to give a donation. I mean, I've had reasons why thousands of people have been now come through here. I haven't heard of any increases in the coronavirus anywhere as a result of of me.
And let me add to that, because that's a great question, because it keeps getting brought up in the legal realm too. I would say again, where is the science and data? The governor says there's going to be a spike of cases. You all can go look at Shiawassee County and what the numbers are. There is no spike.
Right.
There's no spike in cases. There's a slow little trickle, a few more cases per day, that sort of thing, which is happening all over. But there's no spike. This is important, folks. We need to be questioning. And the legislature, in fact, is talking about filing another lawsuit, as I understand it, to demand the governor release this science and data. Why won't she release it?
Right.
But there's no spike. They keep talking about it, and that's part of the problem here with this case, is they say in this case the COVID virus is out there. People are dying. Just in general, it's an awful thing. I agree with all of those statements. That's not the issue here. The issue is, what is Karl Manke doing in his barbershop that's spreading the COVID virus? Nothing. They have absolutely no proof. And the Attorney General actually admitted that in a hearing earlier this week. They don't have any proof that he's actually causing the COVID virus to increase or do more, because they don't have it, because it's not happening. They can't prove it because it's not happening.
Right.
So you don't take mere speculation. You don't take fear. You don't take preying on people's concern, or valid concern over these sorts of things, and turn it into, you've lost your constitutional rights. You no longer have due process. You no longer have the right to be heard, and we're just going to stomp on you.
Right.
I am sorry, folks. That's where we're at right now.
Right. That's right.
And we need to stand up and go to court and fight these issues. We're at the Supreme Court. We'll see what the Supreme Court says about it.
Yeah.
Woo!
Okay, I know you covered all counterparts, but and you made some good interchanges from the last time you guys spoke. But do you have any better strategic plans for next time for the upcoming?
What kind of plans?
Strategic?
Oh, strategic plans?
Yeah, fall in.
Well, again, I think those are all issues that everybody understands, that the experts, I'm not a medical person, okay? I listen to Dr. Fauci and other people just like everybody else. And they say it very well could come back for another wave and that sort of thing. But the point is, now we know where, again, where do most of the deaths happen? Nursing homes and the elderly. Why not take steps to protect those folks?
Right.
Okay? And let business keep operating. And what do? Think of it like this, folks. How many of you have heard of the Legionnaire's disease? Right? We've all heard of it. There have been hotels shut down, areas of a business shut down, because Legionnaires popped up and they had to go in and clean it up, everything else. They get everybody out of there, they shut that building down, right? And they take care of it. You can't do the same thing for this sort of virus. A meat packing plant, Myers in Lansing, they had an outbreak of COVID. Did they shut Myers warehouse down? No, they didn't. Okay, why not? Because there are steps that can be taken, and cleaning and other things that can be done to make sure people are taking the proper precautions. They didn't shut them down. That's what I'm talking about, is you have to look at the, this is an unequal application of the law, which is one of the arguments we're making. This is a clear equal protection violation under our Constitution. You cannot treat some businesses one way, other businesses another way, destroy this person's business and let this person thrive. Right. That is not the role of our government.
Right.
Yeah.
I have the barbershop in Cadillac, Michigan. And I am, half the time I've been barbering for 30 years. And so I stood up when he said stood up. I opened my barbershop 2.5 weeks ago. And yesterday they showed up at my barbershop and told me I'd get papers in the mail for a hearing. So I'm standing up with you, Carl.
Well, you need to give us a call. All right.
So thank you.
All right. Any other questions? We want to be
When will the state
sensitive.
acknowledge the collateral damage? The number of suicides increasing, the number of people who are still not able to get cancer screenings, that people aren't even getting chemotherapy in this community and elsewhere. When will the state acknowledge more people are dying from collateral damage from the shutdown than from COVID-19 itself?
Well, that's not a question for me. That's a question for the governor and for the attorney general.
Carl, I need you to solve something for me for my office. There's a disagreement in our office how to say your name properly. Is it Manke or Manke?
M-A-N-K-E, Manke.
Manke. Thank you.
Good question. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering, have you thought about being tested, or have you been tested yet?
I have no reason to think about it, or I have no reason to do it.
Would you be open
Here,
to
Carl,
it?
what do you think?
Yeah, no, any more than I'd be tested for polio or for cancer or for anything else. I mean, I have no reason to. I have no symptoms. Why am I running around, worrying about these kind of things? I can't live in that kind of fear.
Amen.
Also, there's
Right on.
false positives that it's getting.
Yeah, you had a follow-up?
I have
Yeah.
there was a Great Clips in Missouri that opened up, and a barber had actually didn't know that she was positive, and she exposed herself to 140 people.
Now, there's going to be isolated incidences all over the place.
I was just wondering, are you
Maybe not all over the place, but there will be isolated incidences. No, I can't live in that kind of fear. In the Bible, there's 365 times it says, "Fear not."
Right.
And that must be for one a day.
Amen.
Because there's 365
That's
days
right.
a year.
Every day.
I don't have that kind of
But
fear.
let me answer that. No, that's a very serious question. And let me give you my response to that, because it's come up in the legal area also. And my answer to that is very simple. Like I just mentioned, the Meyer Warehouse had an outbreak, okay? And their distribution center in Lansing. I mean, under their logic then, every single warehouse and distribution center in the state of Michigan had better shut down tomorrow because they had an outbreak where somebody came in and was asymptomatic and spread the disease. Are they doing that? Of course not. You have to ask yourself, why not? Okay? Why not? It's very evident, because there's ways to deal with the situation as outbreaks pop up, and they will pop up.
Right.
But you don't take one incident and make that the norm and make that the rule. Okay? Otherwise, we're all going to be shut down for the next 3-4 years. I mean, that's just not acceptable.
Right.
But it's not to minimize the problem. I mean, that's why I say that's a very serious question. I get it, But there's a certain amount of risk to just living. I'm going to have a certain amount of risk driving home, from this press conference. There's risk that we accept. And that's my point. I hope that answers it. Yeah.
Initially, I know that finances were a factor. Now today I'm going to qualify for the financial assistance and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But to what extent now has it become sort of, have you been propelled to continue because of being thrust into the spotlight and as an icon sort of for the movement, versus just initially it was just for your own rights and for your own purposes of bringing in finances and caring for your family.
Yeah.
But to what extent now do you feel like this movement has, do you feel compelled to continue because of this movement? I imagine that some people speculate that if you wanted to at this point, you could retire at this point. That's just speculation. But to what extent does all this factor into you not backing down?
Listen. I came into this thing, the day I walked into this building, I walked into this thing with, just like everyone else, fear. I had fear, but I was also praying for courage. And I walked into this building realizing that I would probably twist in the wind by myself. And I was prepared for that. Financially, I need to work. Morally, I need to work. Spiritually, I need to work. There's all kinds of reasons why I need to work, other than just financial.
Right.
As far as this part goes, listen, I'm looking forward to 2 weeks from now where I can sit in my barber shop, have my clientele, and everybody else is back with their barbers. And right now, I've been thrust into this. But the first month and a half, we didn't have a TV. So I didn't know any of this stuff was going on. I mean, I do the interviews in here, and that was it. And then I go home and, I live my simple life. I've seen a few of them now on the television. I've seen a few on people's phones. You know, and it's still, I mean, I'm 77. What do I care about all this stuff? You know, maybe when I was 16 or a young guy, maybe you want fame and fortune, you want to be a rock star or something. I could care less about that stuff. You know, I already know who I am. I'm secure in being who I am.
That's good.
I could care less. Yeah.
We love you, Carl.
All right, any other questions? We don't want to cut anybody off. Yeah.
Would this go to the U.S. Supreme Court?
Potentially, but really most of this case is based on state issues. There are some federal constitutional issues, like I mentioned, equal protection, First Amendment. There's also First Amendment involvement here because of Carl's protest. This is a form of symbolic speech. That's a lot of the constitutional issues that really haven't been talked about much, you know, out there, but that's what we want to try to get to with the court.
What can the average citizen do?
Well, I think the average citizen can start asking the same questions we've been talking about here today. Number one, get informed, know what's going on, and then look at whether or not they decide if they own a business or if they want to go back to work, whether that's something they can do or not. People have to make their own individual choices. There is a cost. All right, there's a cost. Carl's paying it right now. He's facing some pretty serious consequences here, but he's standing up for a lot of other folks here in Michigan.
Right.
And we hope others will join him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Look, we so appreciate you guys coming out on a Saturday afternoon on short notice. Okay. We really appreciate you doing that so we could get our side of this out there. And we do have a press release, I think. Do we have copies? Yeah. Dave Scarlett has them there if you'd like a hard copy of a press release we put together. Happy to do that. I'll be hanging around. I'm sure Carl will if you have some individual questions. But thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you.
Carl.